Hi, this is Dave Fiore. First, thanks for listening. Doing these podcasts is a privilege, and I'm thankful that these amazing stories are being heard. I'm also grateful to be part of a local podcast community that is both creating original content and listening to podcasts from around the world. To help promote Tallahassee area podcasts, we've created the Tallahassee Podcast Network, a Facebook page that highlights new episodes from local podcasts every week. You can follow that page for the latest updates and support local creators. We've also created a Facebook group, which Facebook now calls a community, called Tallahassee Pod People, that provides a platform to share your favorite podcasts, ask questions, and share insights on your favorite shows. It's a public group, and I hope you join us there. Now on to this episode of How I Got Here.
I have to encourage everybody, when you come to Doe Campbell, if you're attending a game and the Chiefs are on the field, you just got to get in, you got to settle in a little bit earlier than typical, end your tailgating in time to come on into the stadium. And then that way, when you hear this, you can say, okay, I know that guy. I know who that is. I know his story. So whether that's good or bad or not, you can determine for yourself. And now, the University College of Music is proud to present the world-renowned Florida State University Marching Chiefs.
From Fiore Communications, it's How I Got Here, a show of inspiring stories from Tallahassee area leaders, business owners, and neighbors, all the challenges, opportunities, inspirations, the twists and turns of life that led them to where they are today. Everyone has a story worth telling, and I am really grateful that we get to bring a few of them to you. I truly have been changed by my conversations with these amazing people, and I'm confident you will be too. I'm Dave Fiore, and in this episode I speak with Dave Westberry, the voice of the Florida State University Marching Chiefs for the last 42 years. Dave won the job as the band's announcer at an open audition the year after he graduated, and calls it the best volunteer job you could ever have. The Nashville, Georgia native who grew up in St. Augustine found his way to Tallahassee as a junior transfer and never left. Dave spent much of his 35 years in state government with the Florida Auditor General's office before finishing his career at the Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles. He is a longtime member and volunteer at First Baptist Church Tallahassee, and his volunteer work includes 8 mission trips to Haiti. Dave has been married to his wife Janie since 1988. We began our conversation talking about his early years. So you were born in Nashville, Georgia, right?
There you go.
I don't even know where Nashville is. Where is Nashville?
Berrien County, Georgia.
That doesn't
very
help
much
me either.
South rural Georgia, the other side of Valdosta.
Okay.
Still South Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah. My father was a music education major at Florida State University, graduated and moved up into the South Georgia area, taught in Albany, Georgia, and then migrated over to Berrien County, Georgia, in Nashville, and that's where both my brother and I were born.
Okay.
And shortly after we were born, we moved to St. Johns County, St. Augustine, which is the area where I grew up from the time I was about 2 years old. So that's really home. But yeah, the birthplace, Nashville. I always say, I was born in Nashville. And everybody gets excited. It's like, whoa, what a great city. And I went, okay, yeah.
All right, so you did grow up in St. Augustine. So what was it like growing up there? What was your experience as a young kid in America's oldest city?
And it is as awesome as you could imagine because, of course, growing up in my years there, very much still a small town, not the expanding, burgeoning tourist destination that it is today.
No outlet malls. And
no
World
outlet
of
malls
Golf.
out there. No World Golf Village, those kind of things. But a beautiful place, very much a community that looked after itself. The beaches were just highly underrated, I think, by everybody local, but it was just kind of what we did. It was like I can remember many times, any weekend, Sunday after church, go home and eat and throw on the shorts and head to the beach. And it was like, 5 minutes away, and it was pretty amazing. And I took a lot of that for granted until I came to Florida State. And then it was like, wait, you mean I got to drive how far to get to the beach?
Right.
But it was beautiful and a very caring community. And I loved being back over there. It's a great place to go and visit as well.
Yeah. So how many times have you been to the fort or the Fountain of Youth or any of the tourist stuff?
Yeah, you get to go as a fourth grader. You get to make all those field trips, and I think actually every fourth grader in the state of Florida gets to.
I think they do.
Gets to make that trip. But it's awesome, and it's always interesting. I mean, there's so much history and so much stuff to look at and see. And now you see, your friends will post on social media pictures of them, at the Castillo de San Marcos or some of the other areas in downtown, and you go, yeah, that's my hometown. That's kind of cool,
right?
And it really is a lot of fun to see folks enjoy it and know and appreciate it like I did, having grown up there.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned your dad and your brother. So tell me about your family and what was your family dynamic growing up as a kid?
Sure. Yeah. Mom and dad, my older brother, Douglas, and myself. And that was about it. Grandparents lived in Tampa on my dad's side. My mother had a very interesting story. She's actually was born in Honduras, in San Pedro Sula, Honduras. Came to the States when she was a teenager and lived in the Tampa area. But it was a very close-knit family. My brother is 3 years older than myself, very bright and gifted, and he went to college and got a degree in chemistry and physics and worked for pharmaceutical industry, and I chose a little bit of a different path, but at the same time, we've both been very blessed, parents that were very caring and nurturing and took care of us. Dad was a high school band director. Mom worked at the local elementary school. So it was one of those things you couldn't really screw up in school because they knew about it before you got home. So
right. So with a band director dad, was you being in the band a foregone conclusion?
Yeah, pretty much. And I never gave it a thought. It was one of those things. It just happened. And because people ask me even today, knowing what I do in my association with the Marching Chiefs, they kind of go, you're how old and you're still hanging around with college kids? And I'm like, I don't know anything other than that. From the time I could walk, I was hanging around the back of my dad's band, marching around with kids, and that's what I did. I mean, I grew up doing it. I did it as a high school student, as a college student, and subsequent to that, I just never left it. I mean, that's kind of like my jam, as far as that goes. It's my comfort zone. So it was one of those things. Dad taught me to play clarinet, which was his principal instrument, my principal instrument. I also play saxophone and stuff like that. And wish I played now like I did that back then. But it was just one of those things. I never really thought about it a whole lot. Got through high school and was offered a scholarship to community college in Jacksonville. I actually went 2 years to junior college at what was then Florida Junior College at Jacksonville. 2 years in their music program.
So you got a band scholarship?
I actually did.
Wow.
Yeah, to community college. They were building a symphonic band and a jazz bands, lab bands. I played in those.
You played the sax in the jazz band?
I did, yep. And played with some very good players during the day. I mean, folks like Bill Watrous, trombone player, Maynard Ferguson, the jazz trumpetist.
Wow.
We did clinics with Chick Corea, folks like that. They brought in some very high-profile folks, and it was a lot of fun as a kid. I mean, you're 19 years old. And you're like, man, these guys.
I know these
guys.
This
is fun. Yeah, yeah. But had a great experience there, and then came from junior college to Florida State in 1978.
Did you have any other interests in high school? Did you do any sports or activities or clubs or anything?
I was a world-class basketball player in junior high.
Were you?
And when I never made 6 foot tall, I became the scorekeeper for the basketball team. So
you pivoted.
You're in trouble when the coach comes to you and says, "Hey, how'd you like to be our scorekeeper?"
We got another role for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So my athletic career kind of topped out with my 5'10" height, and that was about it. But always enjoyed it and loved athletics, still do. Loved to be when I got out of college and throughout my college years playing intramurals and stuff like that, I was always kind of the weekend warrior. But, after a while, everything hurts and you just stop and you retire to the golf course, which is where I am now.
Right. Yeah. All right. So you finish up in Jacksonville. How did you end up at Florida State? What was the decision in coming to Tallahassee?
Well, and that's interesting because Dad was a Florida State graduate, but growing up in St. Augustine, there's a huge orange and blue influence
For
there.
sure, yeah.
And I had spent a lot of my summers at music camps and stuff like that at the University of Florida and had even considered going there. But thankfully, as I went through my junior college experience, I became very familiar with Florida State's College of Business, a couple of professors that I had. I had a real interest in the business school here, and I was fortunate enough to get accepted to Florida State. Came here and went right into the College of Business and started studying my accounting degree get my accounting degree, which I graduated with in 1980.
Right. Why accounting? Was that something were you interested in business and kind of figured out accounting, or was accounting always the dream?
Yeah, I think accounting was the anti-band director position.
For sure.
It was but seriously, I think that it was something that interested me because it was not so unique that it was limited to one perspective of the business world. I mean, it touched so many different things. And as I went through my accounting career there, I actually was exposed to some auditing work. I was able to get a job, thanks to some friends, with the Florida legislature in the Office of the Auditor General. And during my senior year at Florida State, I was actually working there part-time in the Legislative Auditor's Office for the State Auditor General. So I got a little exposure to governmental side of accounting and auditing. I enjoyed that very much, and perhaps more importantly, I enjoyed the folks that were there who kind of mentored me at that time. And I was lucky enough when I graduated Florida State, I had a couple of job offers, and one was to stay here in Tallahassee and go to work at the Auditor General's office, and the other one was to travel to New Orleans and live and work there for Shell Oil Company in their Eastern exploration and production operations. And I went to New Orleans and did a site visit, met with everything. The folks were great. It was exciting. The whole idea of working for Shell Oil at that time, in the early 80s was dynamic. But at the end of the day, I saw New Orleans and I know me and I knew what I was made of. I went, I love New Orleans and it's a great place to go for a weekend. I just can't see living here and being here permanently. So I stayed put, which turned out to be a great decision on my part, simply because I just fell in love with Tallahassee. And it's been home for me. I've never left, never thought about leaving. It provides me with everything I could possibly want, from a sense of community, from the university, the government seat, the state government. All of that was very exciting to me as I was starting my career, and the opportunity to stay and hang around Florida State and just extend that time there. And that relationship was more than I needed.
Right.
And, so I just settled right here.
Awesome. All right, well, we're going to come back to your career stuff, but we can't leave the college years without talking about your time in the Marching Chiefs, where all this started for you here.
Absolutely.
So you joined your junior year, right, when you came in?
Correct, yeah. Came in the fall of 1978. And it was one of those things where I know a lot of college students look and they say, how do I need to assimilate into this new community of college students? And they look at social programs, and they look at different fraternities and sororities and things like that. But I kind of knew going in, when you start in with Marching Chiefs in your first fall preseason training and you realize there's 150 like-minded students who are there for the same purpose you are, and then you are immediately joined by 300 other students who are returning for that very purpose, you quickly realize that becomes your family, your new family. You don't need any social outlets to look for, because it is one big group of folks that love on each other, they appreciate each other, they work their tails off for a common goal and a common purpose. And, of course, my love of music and the marching band and Florida State football. I mean, you roll all that up together, and it just becomes a no-brainer.
Right.
I mean, it's folks that are so engaged and so empowering to each other that it just kind of lifts everybody up.
Right.
And it was the best decision I ever made when I stepped on campus.
Yeah. I mean, I had a similar experience, came up to college all by myself, didn't know a single person, got to the first day of preseason training and the tryout audition process.
Right.
And sat down next to the person who would be one of my best friends all through college and immediately was part of a group of 400 people that that's all I knew. And I immediately became bonded to the university and to this group from the very first day.
Absolutely. And when you do that, you make friends not only for that semester or that year or that season of your life that you're at Florida State, but those are lifelong relationships. I mean, I just go through my Facebook pages sometimes and just look at all the folks that I know and I have had some experience, that shared experience with, whether it was folks that I went to school with or folks that I have met along the way in the years since. And it's just so much fun in terms of keeping up with folks and sharing your life with them and them with you.
Right.
That it's just more than you can ever imagine. It's just a ton of fun.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's a pretty darn good band too. So
yeah, it's not that's not only that's kind of an added bonus, but yes, one of the finest collegiate marching bands in America, and has always been. Some great leadership. The College of Music at Florida State University obviously is one of the finest, and they have some amazingly talented people come through those doors.
So I wasn't planning on asking you this, but how did you adjust? So you went to community college first, so you had a little buffer. I went straight from high school band to college band. That was a major adjustment. There's a lot more freedom in the college band. You don't have chaperones checking in on you every 10 minutes like you do in high school. How did you adjust to that change? Yeah,
freedom is a good word for it, Dave. The college experience was eye-opening at times, even for me. And I'm a kind of conservative guy. Okay, I mean, it's not like I was looking to run wild and stuff, but it is pretty amazing. And of course, at that time in my life, you realize that you get a lot of folks come from a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different perspectives and stuff like that. And you have to just kind of take it all in and process it, and you have to realize who you are and what you're made of, and that's where I think that still the shared love of what you're doing brings us together in these groups, but at the same time you have that mutual respect of, okay, I understand who you are and you understand who I am and stuff like that, and like-minded folks, and you find your way, so to speak. But it is like a cold splash of water in your face sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay then.
Yeah. Never heard the term hairy buffalo before I came to Florida.
Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole nother thing. We won't get into that. One of my first road trips, the beginning of my second year, was LSU, and no better place to be part of a night game experience in LSU. But we stayed in New Orleans on the way back. Well, you were there.
Yeah.
Just for disclosure, I knew Dave in the band.
Sure.
He was the voice when I was in the band, and we had some common relationships, so I knew him back then.
I will share with you a few Dave Fiore stories at a later podcast as well, but it was always a lot of fun, and Dave and I had some common friends, and we enjoyed each other's company quite a bit, and it was fun taking that. But that is, again, one of those relationships where you make them during your collegiate years, and here we are, literally 40 years later, sitting down in a podcast in your office to talk about that and our shared experiences. And that is one of the great things about what goes on at Florida State and with our Marching Chiefs
for sure
family.
Yeah, I enjoy that part of it a lot. All right, so you came, it was Bobby Bowden's probably third year, right? Second year? We came in 76, right?
Yeah, I guess, he came the year I graduated high school, so yes, I would have been a couple of years coming in behind him. But as you remember, the 1978 campaign was one that seemingly to me was the stage setting for the greatness that was
the Road Warrior season.
That was the Road Warrior seasons, the things that we came in, and really where Florida State kind of came onto the football map under Coach Bowden. And with their success, of course, came notoriety for the university and the Chiefs' involvement of that, where we made a lot of road trips. And I mean, for decades, there were bowl game after bowl game after bowl game. I mean, what I was doing with the Marching Chiefs gave me the ability to go to and participate in games that were at some of the most amazing college football venues in the country, iconic stadiums and iconic bowl games.
Right.
And when I look back at it now, over that period of time, I say to myself, I said, do you have any idea how lucky you've been to be at all these places, to be at all these games?
Those first Orange Bowls were a big deal.
Oh, they were awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, playing Oklahoma and Nebraska for the national championships, the 93 national championship game, I mean, that was just like you finally got that albatross out around your neck. It's like, yes, we've reached that pinnacle.
Right.
It was really cool moments.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So were you a football fan before you came here? Did you follow that? Did you follow Florida State, or a football fan in general?
No, absolutely. Florida State football fan, and followed really all their athletics and stuff like that.
Because your dad's connection primarily?
Yeah, because dad's connection. We would, when they were on. Now, it's not like today where you can find something streaming or something on every time, but when they were on, I mean, we used to watch basketball games from Tully when the broadcasts were there and stuff like that. And in my first years at FSU, they were still in Tully. Yeah. So that was kind of cool. And you see, even somebody posted the other day the legendary Les Henson shot, Virginia Tech, wrong-handed length of the floor to win that game. And I'm thinking, yeah, I was there. I was in the pep band that day.
Right.
It was like you see those moments and you reflect back and you go, yeah, that's a lot of history that you got to live.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. All right, so you graduate in 1980, and the next season is when you take on probably one of the best volunteer jobs in the whole Florida State University system.
Absolutely.
As the voice of the world-renowned Florida State University Marching Chiefs, which I will ask you to say before we get done with the podcast. So how did that happen? How did that conversation even start?
Yeah, interesting story. I had taken a job full-time with the Auditor General's office here in Tallahassee, and I was settling into that. That fall, the gentleman who had been the stadium announcer for the Marching Chiefs let everybody know he was leaving. He had taken a job down in the Tampa area. And Dr. Bentley Shellahammer, who was the director of the Marching Chiefs at the time, kind of told the Chiefs and some of the folks around the program that, hey, we need a new stadium announcer for this fall. So as they went into fall training, preseason training, he decided to hold kind of an impromptu audition at Chiefs Field one afternoon to pick a new announcer. So he told the students, hey, if you've got friends that want to come and try out to be our new voice, tell them to come on out on this day. We're going to do auditions. Same thing with the staff and graduates and anybody else that he knew, I think. So, of course, I was working in town and I knew they were having the audition. So after work that day, I drove out to Chiefs Field. I was just going to check it out and see what it was all about.
Yeah.
A number of folks auditioned. Basically, they read the pregame script that the Chiefs have traditionally used for years, and a number of folks read through it, and there was a lot of good folks, a lot of good voices, so to speak. But none of them, I don't think, really resonated with anybody and the students in general. And Dr. Shellahammer kind of looked around and says, "Okay, is that it? Is everybody auditioned that wanted a shot at it?" And at that time, there were a number of folks, fraternity brothers of mine that were in Kappa Kappa Psi, which is the National Honorary Band fraternity that I was very good friends with, who were still in Chiefs, were like, Dave, you got to try out. You got to do this because it's like, help, come on, you know what we're looking for. You were just in Chiefs. Why don't you try out? I had given it zero thought about doing this.
So it's like you were standing in front of your mirror going over this and practicing.
No. I'm like, really? And they're like, you got to do it. Try it. So, okay, fine. So unwillingly, I go up and I read through the script for the Chiefs, and Dr. Shellahammer was kind of letting the Chiefs have a vote, and then staff would have a vote, however he did it. He was very diplomatic about how it worked out. And anyway, long story short, I auditioned. They asked me to do it. And that's the last audition they've had. I mean, here I stand, and 42 years later, this will be my 42nd year, still doing it. And it is absolutely the best volunteer job you will ever want to have. To be able to work with the outstanding professionals that are our director of bands, and I mean, through the years of every director that I've worked with to our current day directors, Dr. Patrick Dunnigan, the director of bands at Florida State, Dr. David Plack, who is a very, very good friend of mine, Dr. Chandler Wilson, who has just recently come on, is in his his second, third year. They are all doing stellar jobs. They are wonderful role models and mentors and educators, as well as just outstanding musicians on their own. But to work with them side by side and get to be a part of that, even if it's a kind of a peripheral part, but to be able to be involved in what goes on in the performances that the Chiefs do, it's one of the joys of my life and always has been.
Right. I was going to say it's a volunteer position, but it's a pretty sweet gig for all the stuff you get to do. So you travel, you go to everything the Chiefs do. They can't do it without you, so you're part of the team, right?
Well, they probably could do it without me, but
but not really. It's part of the experience.
But it is part of the package, I guess. And yes, to be considered part of that organization is a point of personal pride for me. I love being the voice of the Marching Chiefs. I love being affiliated with them and being around them. I mean, I'll go out on days and they practice and just to hang out and watch and get to know the kids and seeing them and interacting with them. They are, like 400 plus of the finest students at Florida State University. We always talk about it's not just kids who are music majors; it's kids who are from every college of throughout the university. I mean, there's engineering students, business school students, PR majors, you name it.
There you go.
There you go. It's a diverse group of students, and they work their tails off and want nothing more than the appreciation of the fan base when they say, look, we are here to support our team and our university. They are ambassadors that are recognized, across the country and really, as we like to say, world-renowned now,
right.
As they have made multiple trips overseas to promote Florida State University and represent them. And it's just fun to be around them.
Right. Yeah, the D-Day remembrance is Normandy. That's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And we actually, our intern last semester, Molly Creel, was a chief for several years, and she actually got to make that trip. And she said it was just a life-changing experience.
Yeah, and I would recommend that trip to anybody who can make it. Obviously, being there on the 75th anniversary of D-Day was special. Even if you don't have family members who are veterans or anything like that, the opportunity to go and experience that, it is a very humbling experience for which I am grateful. But yes, Florida State University was well represented by the Chiefs during that week there, and they did performances both in Paris and in Normandy. Laid a wreath in the National Cemetery there, the American National Cemetery there. It was a very sobering time and a great experience for those folks.
Yeah. Well, before we leave the Chiefs talk, I also wanted to give a shout out. You had talked about, relationships and how that doesn't change even when you leave the school. For when I was starting this podcast, I wanted to have an original theme music. I reached out to David Plack. At the time, I had just met him once. I didn't know him well, and I said, obviously I'm a former chief, and I'd love to use an original composition. Do you have any composition majors or people that have been in Chiefs that might want to, create this music for me? And he put me in touch with a guy named Troy Bloom, who did an awesome job. And we went back and forth a few times. He was great to work with. I give him a little plug at the end of every podcast. And it was great. And it meant a lot to me that someone here locally and a former chief was able to, write that music for us.
Absolutely. And there's so many cool examples of stuff like that are out there. Yeah, and Troy's a great guy, and I remember him well from his time at Florida State. And there's so many talented folks like that.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you this. Have you ever missed any games? Has anyone ever had to fill in for you? I mean, in 42 years, I imagine there had to be at least one time.
I'm going to pretend you didn't ask me this question, and we're just going to go right to the next question. No, I have not. I have not missed.
You have never missed.
I have been so close to actually missing a performance, and I'll tell you this story real quickly. We were in Notre Dame, the iconic Notre Dame Stadium.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are typically, they were sitting on the field, as a lot of the Big Ten style schools did in Notre Dame at the time. The visiting band was down kind of on the sideline area. And it was a pretty good hike from where they were, where I was sitting with them, up to the press box for halftime performance. And being the dummy that I am, I waited a little bit too long to get up to the press box in time.
Right.
And I was literally sprinting up stadium stairs in the stairwell to try to get into the press box area and find the PA booth before the Chiefs went on.
Right.
So I kind of got to the PA box and kind of went, ladies and gentlemen. So it was close.
Right.
but no.
No sickness, conflicts, nothing.
No sickness, no conflicts.
Wow.
I'm batting 1,000 after 41 years, and hopefully,
amazing.
hopefully the good Lord blesses me to where I'm not jinxed now. Thankfully for your question.
Do you ever make anybody mad for having to choose that over something else?
No, actually, it's like family and friends and relatives and everybody else knows, don't schedule weddings in the fall.
Don't do it.
Just don't do it.
Yeah, people get what they deserve when they schedule a wedding on,
That's right.
on a football Saturday.
I'm sorry I can't make it,
Just can't do it.
But it's I haven't had to deal with it.
Right, so this was the last year that Gene Deckerhoff called FSU football games. We're going to obviously miss him a lot. Did you have a lot of interaction with Gene up in the booth? What's your relationship with Gene?
I do. Gene and I are very cordial with each other, and we have a little tradition of when he comes into the press box area on game days to set up and do his pregame schedules and stuff. He has some downtime, and he would typically come in and stick his head in the booth where Big Woody Hayes and Woody does the PA, obviously internally for Florida State and the stadium at Doe Campbell, as well as basketball and other events. But I would be sitting in there with Woody because in addition to my responsibilities as the voice of the Marching Chiefs, I also spot for Woody during the game. So I'm up there in the press box.
So for people who don't know what that is, tell us what that means to spot for the announcer.
Okay, basically I am sitting at his elbow with the roster and a pair of binoculars, and I'm watching the game and pointing and referencing to who's carrying the ball, who's making tackles, who's recovering, when there's a penalty, pointing things out to him on the field so he can relay that to the stadium through his announcing.
Right.
And Woody has been a close friend and a great partner in doing that. We have more fun than we should during the games. Everybody talks about the press box has to be a pretty neutral spot, but I won't tell you that we don't share a little bit of
some high fives
of high fives every now and then as our Noles make their way through the season.
Right.
But great guy to work with. So that gives me something to do during the game. So I am there at his elbow. So when halftime comes, I'm ready just to slide over.
You're being useful the whole game.
Right, so I can slide over one chair and do that. And I've had the privilege of doing that both for Woody and his predecessor, Nick Minikoff, that I thought very highly of, a great guy who did the stadium announcing there at Florida State for so long as well.
Okay, so when I think of spotting and numbers, I think of that first game with the new Nike uniforms and you couldn't see the numbers. Did you have a –
Yeah, that
had to be a rough game.
It's a mess. And people don't realize – I'm the complainer in there when a visiting team shows up, and it's something as simple as there's no shoulder pad numbers, players with shoulder pads.
Right.
You realize how hard it is when somebody's laying on the ground. You can't see their jersey number unless they have their numbers on their shoulder pads. And some teams with the new designs have opted not to do that. And I'm like, come on, people, come on. It's all about me. You have to get this right.
Spotters are people too.
That's right.
Come on.
That's right.
All right, so let's zoom back to your career path now.
Okay.
So you had already gotten your foot in the door with the Office of the Auditor General in college, and you decided that's where you were going to go, and you ended up being there, for like 24 years?
Yeah, I spent 22 years with the Auditor General's office, and just a great experience. We were doing financial audits, operational compliance audits. I had a chance to work with a number of different state agencies. As a state auditor, you kind of get to go out and deal with them and work with different agencies. So you get a little bit of a different perspective on the agency operations and help them be better as well as ensuring compliance with legal and regulatory requirements.
So it's not just financial auditing.
Not just financial, right.
Okay.
A lot of it is compliance driven. If there are certain administrative rules, policies, procedures, even Florida statutes that they have to comply with and stuff, you would go in and help ensure that. And it's a role that the Auditor General plays very much kind of under the radar for a lot of folks, but the reports are then given to a legislative auditing committee for their review and stuff. I mean, they're a matter of public record, but again, not a lot of folks know a lot about it.
Right.
But had that opportunity, loved it, every bit of it, worked through that, promoted through as a supervisor, as an audit manager, had responsibility for audits of certain state agencies, one of which was the Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles.
Right.
Which then eventually I was approached by the executive director out there to take a position with the department as the deputy executive director. And I went out there and spent my last 13 years of my state career working with the Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles.
So that was 2002 that you made that change?
Yes. Yeah, correct.
So that's a pretty big change, right?
Yeah. Obviously, you go from the operational side of the shop. I mean, from the auditing side, the post-audit side kind of thing, looking at things in arrears, so to speak,
right,
to living it real time. And yeah, it's a different animal, but a great experience, some wonderful folks out there. And of course, the Department of Highway Safety covers a lot of things: driver's licensing, motor vehicle laws and licenses. I mean, registrations, titles, and of course the Florida Highway Patrol, which is probably the most visible part of the department.
Right.
Which was a totally different set of operational things for me to take on, but a great experience and thoroughly enjoyed it. There's some stellar folks out there at the department do a yeoman's job of keeping Florida safe and working through it, and had a great time for those 13 years before I retired.
And you also served as a communications director while you were there?
I did. I wore a couple of different hats through the change of executive directors. I changed my roles around a little bit. I worked as a comms director for a couple of years, and then when I retired, I was actually serving as what they call the chief performance officer, which was doing strategic planning and performance management, building dashboards for monitoring how we were doing, meeting goals, objectives, and things like that. And that was kind of fun too. And that was back to kind of wearing a little bit of a different hat as well. But the perspective of looking across the spectrum at the department and the department's operations, a lot of fun there.
So total of like 35 years with the state?
35 years. Did my 30 years, went into drop, served my 5-year time period there, and was blessed enough to retire and make my way out to the golf course. So.
I was going to ask, so your transition to retirement, so I know you're still have your volunteer job with the university,
I do.
Still doing the voice and that stuff.
Correct.
And so how else do you fill your time? What do you enjoy doing in your retirement years?
Yeah, and it has been great. And as people ask me, say, you retired kind of young. How was it? And I went, I highly recommend it. But it does provide me with a lot of time to do the things in life that I feel like are important. And I've become a little more involved in my church life, my church work and stuff. I've been a member of First Baptist Church downtown Tallahassee since I came to Florida State as a undergraduate in 1978.
Right.
But have been able to serve in a number of different roles there, in lay leadership roles and committees and different things there. I've done some mission work with a group of folks there that well, I'm trying to think. I've been to Haiti now 8 times, I guess.
Wow.
Started after the earthquake.
So what have those experiences been like?
It's very humbling,
Yeah.
but yet very rewarding. We were able to work with a number of local pastors on the ground in Haiti, where we could go in and work side by side with them for a period of time. Doing things like backyard Bible studies, door-to-door evangelism. Early on, it was helping to build and reconstruct structures and take care of basic needs.
Yeah, a lot of infrastructure issues there, right?
Yeah, the country is really it struggles because of a lack of good political leadership, as well as just a lack of resources. It's a beautiful country. Obviously, when you think about the island of Hispaniola, you think about, well, there's the Dominicans sitting over here on the other side of the border, And then there's Haiti, which is just a
It's night and day, right?
Contrast, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but working there, the people are absolutely wonderful. Unfortunately, my Haitian Creole is not very good, if at all existent.
Right.
But it doesn't stop you from. They had some wonderful translators that we worked with and continue to work with whenever we can get back. COVID kind of limited us a couple years ago. Have kind of put some of those trips on hold. But great work, sharing the gospel with folks down there, going generally a week at a time and doing everything from working with medical groups to working with sports camps to anything else you can think of, and just serving in any way possible during the weeks that we're down there.
Right. You mentioned being a member at First Baptist, essentially your whole adult life here in Tallahassee. So what is the role of your faith played in your life? What impact has it had on your, day-to-day life and, life overall?
Well, everything. I mean, to put it bluntly, I mean, my faith and my acceptance of the Lord Jesus Christ as my personal Savior He changed my life as a young man. I grew up with that faith in a household of faith, but at the same time, until you have that experience on a personal basis, and grow in that faith. The First Baptist community has nurtured me, has continued to teach and help me become the person that I am today. I'd like to think that giving back in some way and being that role model to folks that you meet is probably the most important thing we do as Christians, to share that faith with anybody who has an interest, that you can articulate to them what that means and who Christ is and what it could be to them, and help them understand that. That is something that hopefully defines who I am first and foremost before I am any of these other things.
All right, we've talked about a lot of aspects of your life, but we have not addressed one of the, I would say probably the most important piece, and that's your wife, Janie. So how did you and Janie meet?
Indeed, this is an interesting story as well. When I took my job with the Auditor General's office, it was a number of years into that, and there was a young lady who was working there that we were professional associates, I'll put it that way, for a while. I don't really think she liked me very much to start with.
Oh, come on. How could she not like you?
No, that's the thing. There's a whole backstory there. I don't think she was enamored and thought that I was all that. But slowly we became good friends and coworkers, and we actually worked in the same shop together. And of course, as taboo as that might have been, we're like, ooh, got to keep this on the QT.
Right.
But we eventually did begin a dating and a relationship, and to the point to where she finally decided I wasn't such a bad guy.
That's a step in the right direction.
That's right. That's step one. Make sure they know you're not such a bad guy.
Right.
But been very blessed. She has been a wonderful partner. We were married in 1988. She grew up in Panama City, but went to school here in Tallahassee, went to Godby. She's a Godby graduate and Florida State graduate. She is also an accountant. She is also a CPA. She's a lot smarter than I am. She got her CPA certificate much earlier than I did, and she kicked my butt and nurtured me to get through and get my license.
Helped you get through it, yeah.
It's like, we're going to finish this. But she has been a wonderful partner through all of my entire life. Godly woman who is been kind of my rock and my sounding board for everything that we do. We've been blessed with some wonderful family members that have surrounded us and led us together as through our married life. But I am a lucky man, and I realize that.
All right, so you've won, a number of awards over the years, and including being a member of the Florida State University Alumni Association Distinguished Circle of Gold. So that sounds very cool. Tell us about that. What is that all about?
It is very cool, and it was something that I was totally surprised by. The Alumni Association does have a group of distinguished alumni that they recognize through a Circle of Gold installation ceremony and everything on campus. I think they do it twice a year, recognizing alumni. I was very honored to be selected by them a few years ago to be inducted into the Circle of Gold. I'll give you an idea of the folks, the kind of folks that were inducted in my class of inductees included folks like Myron Roll. Okay, so
not a bad guy.
They're not a bad guy to be associated with, right? So
Rhodes Scholar, brain surgeon.
Yeah. Pro football player. Yeah, blah blah blah. Yeah.
And Dave.
It's like and Dave Westberry. But again, my love for Florida State University has grown throughout the years, and it has provided me with a way to be involved in a manner that I could have never anticipated, 40 years ago.
Right.
And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I do not take it for granted that I have been afforded an opportunity to continue doing this, because this is really, really fun. And it is interesting. I'll tell you anecdotally, going back to my years in work experience, I would be going down the hall at work, and a lot of folks that I know, work associates, friends from work and stuff, and they never really put together the Dave Westberry at work with the Dave Westberry voice of the Marching Chiefs.
Really?
Oh yeah, it would be hilarious, because I would be walking down the hall and somebody would be like, "Hey, Dave, so what you doing this weekend?" I'm like, yeah, game. Oh, yeah, you going to the game? Yeah,
really?
I think I will.
That's funny.
Yeah, and it would be like totally oblivious that
I
was that Dave Westberry.
Right.
And then when you tell them that, and sometimes I wouldn't, I'd just let it lie.
Right.
And then like 2 months later, they'd be like, "You didn't tell me." I'm like, "I'm sorry, man."
Right. We don't walk around going, "Ladies and gentlemen."
Yeah, exactly. You don't do that. And as Janie tells me, she goes, "Well, you realize that's like a totally different voice. It's like that's your voice,
right?"
And I'm like, "Okay, I get it.
Right.
They wouldn't really have a reason to think about that."
Well, I mean, and as far as, getting that award, we kind of joked about, Myron Roll and all he's accomplished, but, 4 decades of service to the university, that's no small thing. I mean, that's a great service to the students, alumni, fans, everybody. That's something to be proud of.
Well, thank you. I don't take it lightly. And like I said, I've been very blessed with that opportunity and look forward to doing it as long as I can. I mean, it's just one of those things. I don't really think about giving it up. I know one day I'll just kind of wake up and go, "Yeah, I'm just going to go tailgate today and not worry about what goes on at pregame."
Right.
So until that time comes, just stay tuned.
You can be the Tom Brady of band announcers.
Yeah, I don't know. I've actually met a number of folks nationwide. When we had the privilege of being in the Rose Bowl, playing for the national championship, I met some folks from the West Coast that were involved in some of the universities out there, and there was a guy that had been announcing for his school for 50-something years. I went, "Yeah, that's not going to happen here. That's not going to be me." But that's really cool. I'm glad, but yeah.
That's funny.
Not so much.
All right, 2 final questions.
Sure.
All right. Dave, looking back, what is one thing or person that has altered the trajectory of your life to this point?
I would have to say my father, simply because he was the one who gave me the freedom and encouraged me not to necessarily follow in his footsteps so closely that I did what he did. He knew that he instilled in me a love of music, a love of education, a love of Florida State University, of everything else. But yet, when I first explained to him, even after going to junior college on a music scholarship for 2 years, that I was going to go to Florida State and study business and become an accountant, he was so encouraging and so positive and everything else, and never blinked, that I wasn't going to be what he was, and everything. And that was probably the critical point in my time, because everybody that I grew up with in my hometown of St. Augustine just assumed that that's what I was going to do, that that's who I was going to become.
Right.
I was going to become my father. I was going to come back to St. Augustine, be the local high school band director or something like that.
Right.
And I loved what Dad did, and I loved the impact he had, and he loved teaching. He was very passionate about what he did and loved every minute of it, and his students loved him and respected him. And even today I see folks, his former students that I know, that speak so fondly of my father, which just warms my heart. But at the same time, he totally gave me that ability just to go do and be my own man. So that would probably be the person that I would look at.
Yeah. All right, final question. This podcast is named How I Got Here. So we've talked about how you got to this point in your life. Where do you think here might be for you in the next 3 to 5 years?
I'm a pretty, I want to say, content with who I am and where I am. There's obviously things that I want to do and want to accomplish in terms of being able to impact people's lives. But I think finding, and one of the things I try to express to folks is finding a sense of community wherever you are, whether it's in your local neighborhood, whether it's in your local church, whether it's in your local gym, and I'd be reluctant if I didn't shout out to the folks that I work out with every day that put up with me every morning when I get up and drag myself to the gym, because that's a community of people that lift each other up and support
You can say
each
where
other.
you work out if you want to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm an Orange Theory fitness guy, and these folks are amazing folks. They are encouraging and nurturing and loving, and we share great experiences, and we watch each other at our best and at our worst on a daily basis. But wherever those people are, and that's true whether you're in a marching band in college, in a community of faith at your church, your local community, it doesn't matter. Find that tribe, and sometimes you can have multiple ones. I mean, I've got a bunch of them,
right.
But there are folks that you live life with and you experience life with. And right now, I love where we are. I love what we're doing. If I'm here in 3 years doing the same exact thing that I'm doing now, I will be perfectly content. The Lord's blessed us. I hope that I continue to have good health in which I can do whatever it is that I feel like I'm led to do. But doing that and modeling your life for other folks and mentoring as many folks as you can.
All right, I lied. I have one more request. I have got to get you doing the Marching Chiefs pregame announcement. So if you can do that for us.
That's right. So
that'd be great.
I have to encourage everybody, when you come to Doak Campbell, if you're attending a game and the Chiefs are on the field, you just got to get in. You got to settle in a little bit earlier than typical. You end your tailgating in time to come on into the stadium. And then that way, when you hear this, you can say, okay, I know that guy. I know who that is. I know his story. So whether that's good or bad or not, you can determine for yourself. And now, the University College of Music is proud to present the world-renowned Florida State University Marching Chiefs.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the show. You can subscribe at Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, please leave us a review. It really does make a difference. Thanks to my amazing staff at Fiore Communications, who pick up the slack while I'm working on these podcasts, and to Troy Bloom for composing our theme music. You can hear more of Troy's creations on Facebook and Instagram at Troy Bloom Music. To connect with the podcast or suggest a future guest, follow us on social media or email us at podcast@fiorecommunications.com.